Hi everybody, my name is Emily Rondell. I'm the Community Learning Coordinator at the Toronto and Region Conservation Authority. And I wanted to share a short video with you guys today about the nature that's in my backyard here. I know a lot of us have to stay pretty close to home these days, so maybe we're looking for nature in our backyards as opposed to kind of further afield in more public places. And often there's some really interesting findings there. And in my backyard today, I found and brought in some pieces to share with you because it's really rainy outside. Some little pieces of urban nature that are really similar, and it brings up a really cool tree identification challenge. And that challenge is how to identify a balsam fir versus an eastern hemlock, two amazing tree species that both live in the Greater Toronto Area and both live in my backyard. Pretty cool. So, at first glance, these two trees look pretty similar. They're both kind of have flattened needles that you can kind of press down with your hands into a single plane. Other short needled coniferous trees don't do that. You would find them really prickly, things like spruce, because the needles are arranged all around in 360 degrees around the twig. Both hemlock and balsam fir are flat, and they both have these really short needles. And it can be easier to tell them apart when they're both right next to one another, but how do you tell them apart when you only have one or the other and you can't really compare? We can see when they are close to one another, balsam fir has slightly longer needles, almost half an inch long, whereas eastern hemlock has short needles, just around a centimeter long. And you hear a lot of different tips about this, but the one that I found the most helpful was just by looking at the branching arrangement of these particular trees. This is balsam fir, and you can see that the little branches are arranged in an opposite arrangement. What that means is that each little branch is opposite another, and they form this really obvious cross pattern. Pretty obvious to see, and it looks very neat and tidy. On the other hand, eastern hemlock doesn't have an opposite pattern. It has an alternate pattern. So each branchlet doesn't have a matching branchlet on the other side. And it looks a little bit more random and chaotic. And it's pretty easy to tell that when, especially if you look at the ones here at the top, that even when there is kind of a match, they're offset. So you can see where the twigs are. I don't know if that's actually focusing for you. But there isn't an opposite and matching. That kind of lends itself, you can look at that at the really, at the twig level, or you can also just kind of look at how it makes the entire branch look, right? A little bit different, more orderly, more random and chaotic. So that's my tip for balsam fir versus eastern hemlock. And both of these trees are really interesting and awesome, and you'd be lucky to have them in your backyard. Please let me know if you do. Eastern hemlock is one of my favorites because it's a really long-lived tree. They can live between 600 to 1,000 years, which I think is unbelievable. The one that I have in my backyard is pretty young, probably around 20 to 30 years old, but I really like thinking about it still being there in 800 years. I think that's really cool. Balsam fir only lives around 150 years, but it is this really amazing, beautiful, large tree. And what's especially cool about it is these little bubbles that form on its trunk. Each one of those bubbles contains this amazing balsam sap blister. And if you puncture them, you can collect that sap. And balsam fir sap has been used for hundreds of years for all sorts of amazing things. It's been used as an antiseptic, it's been used as a medicine, it's been used as a glue, it's been used even in relatively modern times as a glue in preparing microscope slides, which is pretty cool, just to glue down little specimens when you're looking at them on slides in a microscope. So two really cool tree profiles that live in the GTA. See if you can find one of these, see if you can tell them apart, and good luck with that. Thanks.